Don't let the title of this video fool you. I'm not here to complain about the overabundance of optional pay streaming platforms. I actually think it's time to debunk this argument and hopefully put it to rest. I mean, I doubt I'll actually make it go away completely, but hey, can't say I didn't try. Let's get right into this. Over the last 60 years or so, television has risen from being a small luxury good to a mainstream outlet of human entertainment. What started as a leisurely way to spend family time in the 50s quickly grew to become the most popular and accessible form of media consumption through the next several decades. People began dedicating hours at a time just sitting in front of this colorful box of wonder where hundreds of different programs were just waiting to be discovered. This of course continued on into the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s, with the average daily watch time increasing at a steady rate all the way until its peak in 2009. Needless to say, TV was everywhere and it didn't appear to be going away anytime soon. Cue the 2010s. This most recent decade saw the popularization of the internet's true capabilities in its appeal to mass audiences. Many people began to recognize the rise in activity on major sites like YouTube and Facebook, which were gaining so much traction that they began to pull people away from their television screens. And of course, this phenomena led to where we are today. Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime began releasing content for people to view as they rose in popularity and rapidly gained large audiences. With streaming, you could watch whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want, however you want. You cannot do this with cable. Televised programming is bound to the inside of your home, and it is also restricted by the schedule that the channel runners have set out for it. So if you really wanted to watch an episode of Steven Universe one night, but the executives of Cartoon Network felt like dumping out a 12-hour marathon of nothing but Teen Titans Go, well, you're shit out of luck. Nothing you can do about it. Streaming, on the other hand, gives you that choice. Streaming is all about choice, and that's why many of the platforms are supported on multiple devices. Televisions, phones, tablets, computers, way more platforms than basic cable can provide. And the best part is that you can select whatever show you want at any time. And if you have to go somewhere and leave in the middle of the program, you can just pick it right back up where you left off when you get another chance to watch it. And television is the superior product. How exactly? You know how Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft are considered the big three of the oligopoly that exists in the console gaming market? Well, the same could have been said about Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, at least for the first few years that streaming was hitting its stride. Nowadays, maybe not so much, seeing as other media companies quickly caught wind of their success and began announcing their own variations of a streaming platform, which of course is where this whole too many services discussion originated from. Here at the end of the 2010s, we got CBS All Access, Disney+, HBO Now, and the upcoming HBO Max. Peacock's coming out next year, Boomerang, Crunchyroll, Hulu TV, Apple TV, YouTube TV, DC Universe, ESPN, Showtime, and even more as they continue to pop out of the woodwork every couple of months. But I have absolutely no issues with the number of streaming services that are currently available, and I will tell you exactly why with just one word. You ready for it? Competition. More services means more competition. More competition means better service for consumers. Better service can mean a few different things. Better streaming quality, bigger libraries, more additional features. Let me put it this way. Competition forces companies to put in effort because they need to do it to stay afloat and ahead of their competitors. Do you know what happens when a company gets a monopoly over a market like this? I can name an obvious example, and in fact, I know that you've all heard of it before. How do I know that? Because you're on it right now. That's right, it's YouTube. YouTube has become such a monopoly over free video sharing websites to the point that they've got so much control, they can do whatever the fuck they want and not give a single shit about their user base. A lot of people are furious with this website, and I constantly see people ask why the creators don't just go somewhere else. Well, it's true. I mean, tons of creators want to leave it, but it's not like we can. There's nowhere else to go. Competition prevents that from happening. We are currently at a point where these services need to offer a huge library of content so that they can attract a larger audience away from their competitors. Disney Plus is a textbook case of why competition is a good thing. They didn't have to put nearly every Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar movie on their service on day one. They even went the extra mile and offered an extras section for trailers, deleted scenes, bonus materials, a feature that, again, they didn't need to include, but they did so that they could stand out for their competition. And something like this is more compelling for a viewer to use the service because they can check out this material that they probably wouldn't see unless they own the DVD. These companies are making as much content available as possible because they want to draw you in, which is a good thing because it means more variety in what we get to watch as consumers and a higher likelihood that there will be shows that appeal to you specifically. That is a major positive to having so many streaming services. On top of that, most of these services have their own big budget original content that you can't see anywhere else. Oh, and did I mention that most of these services also have zero commercials? I mean, sure, some do, but they almost all offer an ad-free package to mitigate that, which is a huge edge streaming has over TV. So with that said, let's address the most ludicrous argument of them all. The cost. It seems to me that a reoccurring issue people have with these streaming services is that they cost too much, which is a real head scratcher for me. Well, I did some research for this video because, you know, it's good to have numerical evidence to support your argument instead of just talking out of your ass and expecting people to side with you, and I discovered a lot of statistical data that backs up my claim. The Leichtman Research Group, I probably pronounced that wrong, is an organization reputable and known for collecting data on this very subject, and they state that the average American cable bill in 2018 was about $107 a month, whereas the average internet bill was only $67 a month. Bear in mind that these are averages, so your monthly bill will likely be higher or lower than these amounts. As you can see by this diagram, 54% of households pay for both TV and internet, about 20% only pay for one or the other, and the remaining 5 to 6% do not pay for either. That said, I've gone ahead and listed the average monthly costs for each of these three groups, as well as a rough estimate of the average yearly cost below that. What happens to these numbers when we factor streaming services into the equation? Here are the prices of several popular streaming services currently available right now on screen for you. Obviously, there are higher tier packages on some of them, but we're going to go with the basic choice, seeing as that is the minimum required amount you would need to pay to use them. Furthermore, according to a public survey conducted by YouGov, which consisted of approximately 1,200 individuals, 56% of people were subscribed to between 1 and 3 services, while 28% were not subscribed to any. That means that roughly 16% of the population pays for 4 or more of these services, while the vast majority pays for 3 or less. Again, these are estimates, so they probably aren't 100% exact, but with a sample size of over 1,000 people, it's pretty likely that it is a good representation of the overall trend. I've also put up a poll in the cards of this video so that you guys, who are watching this now, can also include how many services you currently pay for. I think it'd be interesting to compare those numbers to this survey and see if there's an overall similar result. Also, if you could, please try to share this video around as well if you've enjoyed it so far. I'd really like for more people to be aware of the benefits of streaming, and every little bit helps. So much as sharing it on Twitter or Reddit or whatever social media site you frequent is more than enough. Thank you guys so much. I sincerely appreciate all the support you've given me in 2019, and I cannot wait to see what I manage to accomplish in 2020. Now back to the subject at hand. If we take the average cost of all of the streaming services that I just listed, it comes out to about $8 a month per service. Considering that 56% of people subscribe to 3 services or less, we'll say that the average household pays for 3 since that's the largest amount for that category. Multiply 8 times 3 and you get an average of $24 a month spent on subscriptions. Now let's go back to our graphic regarding the percentage of TV and internet watchers, and add this amount to the totals of the 2 groups that pay for internet. And there you have it, the rough costs for internet, TV, and both a month. My whole point in explaining this math to you is to demolish the cost complaint, because it's based around the assumption that people are paying for every single service, when in reality, that isn't the case at all, and we've got the numbers here to back that up. If paying for multiple services is really that much of a problem, then consider sharing accounts with some friends. Almost all of these services support multiple profiles, so just split the cost with some other people. Or heck, just pay for one at a time. I really cannot fathom why there are people out there complaining how expensive this is. Like, are they that ignorant to how this works? Sure, there are a lot of streaming services to choose from, but you aren't being required to pay for all of them. Just do one or two at a time. Seriously. Oh, but what if I don't have internet? Then you wouldn't be watching this video now, would you? Ultimately, I feel like a good percentage of people complaining are just trying to find something to be upset about, honestly. Don't get me wrong, there are people with legitimate criticisms for these services that I'm about to acknowledge, but price should barely be a factor in the equation. Region locking. One example of an issue people seem to have with Netflix is the fact that they region lock some of their content. Some programs are only available in certain countries, and yeah, I think that's stupid, but all you need to do is get a VPN and you can bypass that issue no problem and keep your internet data safe from attackers. Sure, you can make the complaint that, oh my gosh, I have to do this extra step, but honestly, it's a pretty wise idea to protect yourself with one anyways. And no, don't worry, this isn't a sponsorship, although if any VPNs out there do want to sponsor me, feel free to hit me up, wink wink nudge nudge. Another issue is content disappearing from the service. Okay. This I get. We don't want to lose access to shows we like, and there's always this fear of it happening because nothing is permanent. But how is that any different from TV channels dropping them from their lineup? I'm a fan of older Cartoon Network shows, but when the hell was the last time Cartoon Network aired their older programming on a regular basis? Years ago. This issue isn't only prevalent to streaming, so while yes, I do admit that it is a problem that I hope will get fixed at some point in the future, it's not something that makes TV a better option. It's an entirely separate discussion altogether. And to go back to the whole overabundance thing again, there are already some steps being taken to curb that problem. Verve, for example, is a platform that just combines a bunch of other platforms together in one, so you only need to pay one monthly fee to access a bunch of different platforms. HBO Max, recently announced not too long ago, seems to be combining several other AT&T owned services that already exist together. Programs that are featured on HBO Now, DC Universe, Boomerang, Crunchyroll, and other Warner Media services will all be available on this one platform when it launches next spring. There's one particular tweet thread that I wanted to point to as a way of showing you that yes, there are people out there who believe this is a bad thing, and it is mind-numbing. So this user starts by listing the cost of all of these services and then says, almost $90 a month in streaming services. Cutting the cord was supposed to save us how much? And nearly 100,000 people like this. Now, I don't know about you, but this tells me that 100,000 people and probably more believe that they are required to pay for all of these services at once, which tells me that they're a little uneducated when it comes to this subject. The only other way I can interpret this statement is if she's trying to claim that, assuming a person was subscribed to all of these services, it costs more to pay for all of them separately than it would for the exact same amount of content on a single cable bill. Except that it's not, and I've already proven that. It also appears to me that she is one of the 54% of consumers that pay for both cable and internet, seeing as she's on Twitter talking about this, so the cost of internet cancels itself out when comparing these prices. As it stands, she is making baseless assumptions, and the fact that 100,000 people agreed with her on false information is kind of disturbing. She would actually save herself money by dropping cable and switching to streaming because the average prices, as I mentioned earlier, are $107 and $24 respectively. She could have tried to make the argument that it would be more expensive to pay for internet and all of these services rather than cable by itself, which admittedly would be true, but that's not reality. The large majority of people don't do that. Later on, she claims most of us do have every service, which, okay, I already disproved that, but then immediately contradicts her original point by saying that people share logins. How can you claim people have every service with zero proof other than just because I say so, and then also complain about the price of all of them when you blatantly stated that people don't even pay for every service they have access to? Then she goes on to ask, But if we did pay for each of them, how much would it cost? Except we don't pay for them. That's the whole point. This is a rhetorical question about a reality that doesn't exist. But if we did, literally means that we don't. Y'all are missing the point. Personally, I don't think she has one, but anyways. Now that every channel has a service, they are their stuff off of Netflix, so in order to have what you had in the past, you have to pay more. Except that I already disproved that. Once again, you don't have to pay for all of these services at the same time. And this is another good thing because splitting these shows into smaller, lower price chunks means we don't have to pay for what we don't want to watch. Are these people saying it'd be better if everything was on one platform? Because, as I mentioned earlier, YouTube is an explicit case of why that isn't a good thing. People also don't need to watch everything. In fact, we never did. Just because 600 channels are available on TV does not mean I want to or even have the time to watch all 600 channels. I just stick to the same dozen or so that I personally have a preference for. And then you still gotta pay for high-speed internet. But clearly this guy is already paying for internet because he's on Twitter. Or at the very least, he's mooching off of somebody else. That's the thing that gets me the most. When people are complaining about having to pay for high-speed internet in order to use the streaming service, when they're probably already paying for high-speed internet regardless. The only way that TV would be more cost efficient is if he paid for the most basic cable package instead of the highest internet speed. My favorite so far was the young lady who told me to get Verizon to get Disney Plus and AT&T for HBO. So I gotta have 2 cell phones to get 2 free services. Or you could just pay the super cheap regular monthly fee for them and not get either cell phone. You know, reading this tweet thread, it doesn't frustrate me or bother me. It just makes me feel sorry for this woman. She's probably thrown so much money away on things that she didn't realize she could have saved. But what are you gonna do? It's pretty safe to say that streaming is going to dominate while television withers away, whether or not viewers want to accept that. But that's their own personal issue to work out. As for me, I'm embracing it in open arms and have minimal complaints with what we're currently getting. Streaming is efficient, affordable, customizable, and comfortable, and there's not much more I can really ask for. However, if there's one super ultra mega important thing that I want you to take away from this video above everything else, it's that Google Stadia is shit and unstable and has way too many issues, so don't waste your money on it. Game streaming is not the same thing.